You called for Cathy Engelbert's resignation from her role as WNBA Commissioner.
Doesn't strike me at all. Same reaction. Cathy Engelbert should resign as the commissioner of the WNBA.
You know, I'm a human too. I have a family. I have 2 kids who are devastated by these comments, and so all I'll say is just, you know, it's obvious.
You know, I think what people need to understand, you know, we need great leadership in this time across all levels.
WNBA finals, and so I'll leave it there. I mean, I'm just obviously disheartened.
You hear Caitlyn Clark there, how does that strike you?
Christmas morning 2025 was a quiet promise. In the sleek, near-empty offices of the WNBA headquarters in New York, the silence was a palpable relief. For Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, the holiday break represented more than a pause. It was a necessary ceasefire in a war of attrition that had defined her tenure. The previous season had been a paradox of historic triumph and unrelenting tumult. Viewership had shattered records, arenas had sold out, and merchandise flew off shelves at a rate previously unimaginable for women's professional basketball. Yet, the league had also been dragged through a gauntlet of controversy. Heated debates over physical play, swirling accusations of racial bias in coverage and fan engagement, and locker room tensions that frequently spilled into public view. Engelbert, a former CEO of Deloitte, was a strategist by nature. She believed in systems, in collective growth, in building an ecosystem where the league itself was the premier brand. Her philosophy was one of careful equilibrium. Promote the whole, protect the structure, and elevate individuals within the framework of the team. It was a model born of necessity during the WNBA's leaner decades, a survival mechanism that prioritized solidarity over stardom. But the ground had been shifting seismically beneath her feet for 2 years, ever since a sharpshooting guard from Iowa named Caitlyn Clark declared for the draft. Clark wasn't just a player, she was a cultural phenomenon. Her deep-range logo threes were highlights, but her true impact was economic. She brought with her a devoted, massive fan base, many new to the WNBA, and the voracious attention of corporate sponsors. She was a one-woman stimulus package, but her very presence exposed the fragile fault lines in Engelbert's carefully managed ecosystem. The veterans who had built the league, legends like Aja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, and Chelsea Gray, watched as a rookie received coverage and commercial opportunities that seemed to eclipse a career's worth of work. The tension wasn't petty jealousy. It was a fundamental question of value, recognition, and who this rapidly expanding league was truly for. Engelbert had spent the offseason trying to bridge these divides. She publicly championed the new player-led off-season league, Unrivaled, founded by Stewart and Nafisa Collier. It was a project designed to keep top talent stateside during the winter and provide them with greater financial equity. Privately, the league's top priority was securing Caitlyn Clark's participation. The offer was staggering, over $1 million for a short commitment, a number that dwarfed her rookie WNBA salary. It was a lever pulled to demonstrate unity, to show that the league could create value for its brightest star. Clark declined, politely, professionally, but firmly. She cited a need for rest, for preparation. The decision was met with quiet frustration. In some corners of the establishment, a sense that the new star was unwilling to support the structures designed to uplift everyone. For a few precious hours on December 25th, Engelbert allowed herself to believe the noise had finally subsided. The sports world spotlight had turned to the NFL's holiday slate and the NBA's Christmas Day extravaganza. The plan was simple. Let the WNBA exist in a period of reflective calm, regroup, and prepare for the critical collective bargaining negotiations and the 2026 season ahead. The silence, however, was an illusion. It was the hollow moment before the detonation. At exactly 10 a.m. Eastern Time, as families gathered around trees and the first games of the day were still hours from tip-off, the notification appeared. It didn't come from the WNBA's official account. It didn't come from a sports network. It came from Nike. The post was a 32-second commercial titled, "From Anywhere." It starred Caitlyn Clark. To the average viewer, it was a stunning piece of marketing, cinematic, atmospheric, and cool. Snow fell softly on a deserted suburban driveway. Clark, dressed in sleek, custom Nike gear, dribbled a basketball with a quiet intensity. The camera work was expansive, moving from tight close-ups on her focused eyes to wide shots that emphasized the isolation of the setting. Then, the cameos appeared, not as fellow WNBA stars, but as male titans of pop culture: Travis Scott, the genre-bending rap superstar; Jason and Travis Kelce, the NFL icons and media personalities; Michael Che, from Saturday Night Live. They appeared as challengers, doubters, and ultimately, witnesses. "Hey, Caitlyn, how about from here?" one would ask, pointing to an impossible distance. "She can't make it. No chance," another would scoff. Clark's response was silent. She'd rise, release a shot from that exact, ridiculous range, and the ball would arc beautifully through the falling snow, swishing through a net mounted on a garage. The tagline echoed, "From anywhere." Within minutes, the view count exploded. It was shared by celebrities, athletes from other sports, and millions of fans. The production value was blockbuster tier, more reminiscent of a Super Bowl ad or a major movie trailer than a typical sports endorsement. It portrayed Clark not as a basketball player, but as a mythic figure, a lone gunslinger operating on a plane of existence that transcended sport. Inside the WNBA offices, the initial reaction was one of stunned disbelief, which rapidly curdled into full-blown panic. Phone lines, supposed to be silent for the holiday, lit up. Texts flew between executives, team owners, and communications staff. This wasn't just an ad. It was a direct challenge to the league's core operating principle. Engelbert watched the spot, and with each viewing, the subtext became clearer, more threatening. The WNBA logo was conspicuously absent. There was no nod to team, city, or league history. No Cheryl Swoops, no Lisa Leslie, no Sue Bird, the foundational legends whose presence in league marketing was a sacred ritual of continuity and respect. Instead, Clark was framed alongside global, predominantly male celebrities. The message was subtle but devastating. Caitlyn Clark exists in the realm of Travis Scott and the Kelce brothers. She is a pop culture icon first, a WNBA player second. For Engelbert, this was a rogue play of the highest order. League partnerships with brands like Nike were typically tightly coordinated. Joint announcements, shared marketing calendars, an emphasis on league branding alongside the athlete. This was different. This was Nike declaring independence. The unspoken corporate statement was brutally clear. "We don't need the WNBA to sell Caitlyn Clark. We just need Caitlyn Clark." The timing was interpreted not as coincidence, but as a deliberate act of corporate spite. The Unrivaled League's roster reveal and promotional push had just launched, a moment the WNBA front office had hoped would dominate the offseason conversation and demonstrate the league's innovative, player-centric growth. Clark's Nike ad, released on the quietest news day of the year, detonated that strategy. Within 24 hours, the From Anywhere spot had garnered 6 times more views than the entirety of Unrivaled's launch campaign. The optics were catastrophic. The league's chosen off-season centerpiece was instantly overshadowed, proving a harsh, market-driven truth. Caitlyn Clark didn't need Unrivaled. Unrivaled, and by extension, the league's strategy, desperately needed her. The commercial was a mirror held up to the league's most uncomfortable reality: the staggering financial gap between its institutional economics and the personal market value of its top star. Engelbert, the corporate turnaround specialist, understood optics and balance sheets better than anyone. This ad was a masterpiece of optics that laid the balance sheet bare. The production was rumored to have cost several $million. Clark wore custom-designed apparel. She shared the screen with celebrities whose own endorsement portfolios were worth tens of millions. The aesthetic, dark, sleek, expensive, stood in brutal contrast to the often criticized production quality of some WNBA broadcasts, with their fewer camera angles and simpler graphics.
She was talking about Cathy Engelbert directly. She revealed private conversations, you understand, with quotes from this lady, the commissioner, about what she said that came across as dismissive, as derogatory, and unappreciative of the athletes that represent her league.
It screamed one undeniable fact: the real money was not flowing from the league. It was flowing around the league, directly to Caitlyn Clark from Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, and others. Her rookie salary, even as the #1 pick, sat just over $76,000. The catering budget for the From Anywhere shoot likely eclipsed that. This was the embarrassing open secret Engelbert had been trying to manage. Her public comments earlier in the year, urging perspective on rookie wages by pointing to Clark's external millions, now seemed painfully defensive. The ad made that defense crumble. It visualized the disparity in high definition. For the players' union, gearing up for CBA negotiations, it was a gift. It was a 32-second argument for economic reform. "Look at the value this player generates," the ad silently shouted. "Now look at what the league pays her. Why should she, or any player, settle for crumbs when the feast is happening just outside the arena doors?" Team owners, sensing both opportunity and threat, began calling Engelbert. Their frustration was multifaceted. Why wasn't this marketing muscle benefiting the Indiana Fever, Clark's team? Why wasn't the league able to capture a percentage of this meteoric rise in brand value? The WNBA was being boxed out of the profit stream generated by its most valuable asset, and leadership appeared powerless to redirect it. If the financial implications were a crisis, the social dynamics the ad unleashed were a powder keg. The epicenter was A'ja Wilson, the Las Vegas Aces superstar, a 3-time MVP, 2-time champion, and the consensus best player in the world. Wilson, too, was a Nike athlete. Just weeks before, Nike had released a commercial for Wilson. It was a competent, positive spot, focusing on her community work and on-court dominance. But placed side by side with From Anywhere, the difference was not just noticeable, it was narratively damning. Clark's ad was cinematic, epic, and cool. Wilson's was viewed as simpler, more traditional, and earthbound. Social media exploded with side-by-side comparisons. The narrative coalesced instantly. Nike was investing in the future, Clark, at the expense of the present, Wilson. It was prioritizing white, Midwestern marketability over black, established excellence. Whether this was a deliberate corporate strategy or merely the result of different marketing budgets and creative directions was irrelevant. Perception is reality, and the perception was one of profound disrespect for the veterans of the league, many of whom had fought for decades for recognition and fair pay. This was the ultimate indignity. It validated their deepest suspicions, that no matter their accomplishments, no matter how many championships they won or MVPs they collected, the corporate machine would always favor a certain narrative, a certain type of star. The From Anywhere had poured gasoline on long smoldering resentments about physical play, media coverage, and fan bias. If Clark was being anointed as a global icon before winning a single playoff game, what did that say about the value of their own legacies? Engelbert understood the on-court consequences of this perceived slight. The 2025 season had been marred by debates over targeting and overly physical play against Clark. Now, entering 2020.
Hey, Caitlyn, how about from here?
Come on, guys.
Yeah, she can't make it. No chance.
Caitlyn, conmigo, what? You got it.
I'm not even gonna ask.
Hey, Caitlyn from here might be impressive. Am I right?
Whatever, Chet.
So right here.
From there.
From anywhere.
6. The emotional landscape was infinitely more volatile. Would veterans, feeling financially and culturally undervalued, take their frustration out on the court? Would every hard foul on Clark be dissected as an act of rebellion? The game risked devolving from sport into ongoing sociological drama, a reality show with a basketball backdrop. That was a nightmare scenario for a commissioner trying to sell the WNBA as a premier professional sports product. The From Anywhere campaign was more than marketing. It was a quiet coup in the power dynamics of women's sports. For decades, the WNBA's authority had been centralized. The league controlled the schedule, the broadcast deals, the majority of the revenue streams, and, crucially, the narrative. Players became stars within the system. The From Anywhere ad signaled that this paradigm was over. Caitlyn Clark was now a star despite the system. Her platform was global. Her sponsors were mega corporations with reach far beyond the WNBA's audience, and her cultural relevance was being cemented alongside figures from music and football. Nike's choice of co-stars was a masterstroke in repositioning. They weren't linking Clark to the history of women's basketball. They were linking her to the present of global cool. This bypassed the league's internal hierarchy entirely. It sent a message to young fans. You don't have to care about the WNBA's past to care about Caitlyn Clark. She exists in your world, the world of Travis Scott tweets and Kelsey podcasts. This created a schism in the fan base that Engelbert was trapped in the middle of. On one side were the new, often younger, predominantly white Caitlyn Clark fans, whose loyalty was to the individual, not the institution. On the other were the longtime, often black, LGBTQ+, and deeply committed fans who cherished the league's history, its culture of community, and its veteran stars. Catering to one alienated the other.
First of all, I have great respect for Fee, and I think she made a lot of very valid points. And, I think what people need to understand, we need great leadership in this time across all levels. This is straight up the most important moment in this league's history. This league's been around for 25 plus years, and this is a moment we have to capitalize on. So that's honestly what I would say. I think there's, Fee said it all with what she said, and I think the points she made were very valid.
The commissioner's role was now one of impossible diplomacy. The ad also brutally exposed the limits of Engelbert's gratitude framework. The previous October, a leaked account of a private meeting had sparked the Lucky Stars controversy. Engelbert was reported to have told players they should be grateful for the media rights deal she helped secure. The phrasing, whether taken out of context or not, sparked fury. It echoed the paternalistic language women athletes had heard for decades. Be happy with what you're given. Players like FIBA star turned commentator Faye and others publicly rebuked the sentiment. Clark's Nike commercial was the antithesis of gratitude. It was a display of sheer market power. It said, "I don't need to be grateful. The market is grateful for me." This eroded the commissioner's moral and practical authority. How do you demand gratitude or institutional loyalty from a player whose 32-second ad likely generated more brand value for Nike than the league's entire media deal did for its players? The leverage had fundamentally shifted. The most existential threat whispered in the wake of the Christmas ad was one that chilled owners and the front office alike. What if the WNBA is no longer the pinnacle for Caitlyn Clark? The From Anywhere concept was intentionally borderless. It suggested a reach beyond American cities, beyond a 12-team league. The financial logic was now visible for all to see. If a single company like Nike was willing to invest this heavily in Clark as an individual, what would stop a consortium of sponsors, Nike, Amazon, Google, from bankrolling an alternative? A Caitlyn Clark World Tour, playing in sold-out arenas across the globe, broadcast directly to streaming services, could potentially generate revenue that rivaled or surpassed what the WNBA could offer. It was the super team model, applied to an individual. The current collective bargaining agreement had years to run, but the seeds of disruption were sown. If Clark's camp looked at the league's revenue projections and salary cap structures and saw a ceiling far below her market value, the temptation to explore other models would grow. What if she, and other top draws, chose to opt out and create a player-owned tour or league? The WNBA had survived competition before, but never from a force amplified by such immense corporate firepower and fan devotion focused on a single individual. For Engelbert, this wasn't just about managing a star. It was about preserving the institution itself. The fear was that the WNBA could become a developmental league for Caitlyn Clark Incorporated, a place she passed through on her way to a larger, self-built empire. That scenario meant irrelevance for the league that had fought for survival for nearly 3 decades. Adding a layer of operational embarrassment was the immediate international backlash. The From Anywhere tagline and the sweeping visuals promised global accessibility. Yet, when fans in Brazil, France, Spain, and China went to Nike's sites to purchase the featured merchandise, they found it was unavailable in their regions. Comment sections flooded with frustration. From anywhere except here, became a common refrain. While this was a Nike logistics issue, the failure reflected poorly on the WNBA's own stated ambitions. Engelbert had consistently talked about global expansion, new franchises in Toronto, Montreal, or even London, broadcast deals in Europe and Asia. The league's biggest marketing moment in history, however, was not aligned with that vision. It highlighted a disjointed, unprepared infrastructure. Once again, it appeared the athlete and her corporate partners were operating on a more sophisticated, global level than the league that employed her. For a commissioner selling the vision of a worldwide sports property, it was a damaging look of incompetence at the moment of greatest visibility. The 2026 season, then, would not begin in the fall. It began on Christmas morning 2025. The From Anywhere commercial drew an invisible but indelible line through the heart of the WNBA. On one side stood the old guard, the league office, veteran players, and traditional fans clinging to a model of collective sacrifice and gradual, equitable growth. On the other stood the new reality, individual superstardom, driven by market forces and global celebrity, threatening to overwhelm the structures built to contain it. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert was no longer merely a growth-oriented CEO. She was a crisis manager standing at the epicenter of a power quake. Every decision from this point carried immense weight. CBA negotiations, marketing strategies, discipline for on-court incidents, media access. The league could not afford another moment where it looked small, reactive, and subordinate to its own talent. The saga was no longer about an advertisement. It was a case study in modern sports economics and culture. It revealed what happens when an individual's gravitational pull becomes stronger than the orbit of the institution. The leagues that survive in this new era are not those that resist this shift, but those that adapt, finding ways to harness that star power to elevate the whole without being consumed by it. For Engelbert, the path forward was fraught. She had to convince skeptical veterans that their value was recognized, assure a new fan base that their star would be protected and promoted, negotiate a CBA that addressed grotesque pay disparities without bankrupting owners, and do it all while maintaining the WNBA's hard-won identity. She had to prove the league was not just a platform for Caitlyn Clark, but that Caitlyn Clark could be the catalyst that finally secured the league's permanent, prosperous place in the sports pantheon on its own terms. The From Anywhere ad was the stress test the WNBA didn't know it was taking. The results were in. The structure had cracks. Now, the real work of reinforcement, or radical redesign, had to begin. The 2026 season would be the proof of whether the league and its commissioner were up to the task.